I'd like to call the regular meeting of council to order for Monday, September 24th, 7 p.m. City Hall Council Chambers. I'd like to first recognize that we're doing our business this evening on the traditional unceded territory of the Hupetchisitt and Sechot First Nation. And also recognize that Councillor McClellan is joining us by telephone this evening. So you will hear his ghostly voice in the off there, and I will get him to say aye if he agrees with things, or let us know if he doesn't agree with things. So welcome, everybody. Councillors, any late items? Councillor McClellan, any late items?
No, there isn't.
Okay. City Clerk, any late items?
Mr. Mayor, Council, the only late item this evening is that Delegation D2 will not be joining us.
Okay, thank you. Then, Council, a motion to adopt the minutes as circulated, please.
Mr. Mayor? I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor?
Is this all the minutes, Mr. Mayor, or just the last regular meeting?
Sorry, this is a motion to approve the agenda. My apologies. As circulated. All those in favor of approving the agenda? Councillor McClellan?
The agenda, yes.
Carried. And Council, we have, brings us to B, the adoption of the minutes. We have the special meeting of Council held at 4 p.m., regular Council meeting held at 7 p.m. on September 4th, and a special meeting of Council held at 4 p.m. on September 17th. A motion to adopt those minutes, please.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Any comment?
Yeah, I have one, Mr. Mayor, on the meeting that we had the people from Pioneer Towers there.
Yes?
The second motion, when I made it, I was looking for a comment not just for seniors housing, but for specifically the problems that they had at the cabins and the Pioneer Towers, because the city had some work at getting that thing set up, and we had some obligation. So it wasn't just generally seniors housing, but specifically the problems that they were having.
Okay, so Councillor McClellan, how would you like to see that those minutes reflect that?
Specifically what I said was, permissive tax attention in conjunction with 5-year financial plan process, prior to inviting application 22, a special emphasis, it says here, to given seniors housing, but I asked for a special emphasis to be given to the problems of the Pioneer Towers and the cabins attached to it. So that's what I would like to say. That's what I said, and you can check the video, I guess, and it would be pretty close.
Okay, so a motion to adopt the minutes reflecting that change then, please.
I'll make that motion.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor?
All right?
Carried. And then that brings us then, Council, to the public input period. It's an opportunity for public to address Council on topics of relevance to City Council. Maximum of 4 speakers for no more than 3 minutes each can be accommodated. Anybody wish to address Council? Please come forward, Mr. Deacon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm going to cover 2 items within my 3 minutes. The first is making resilience and recovery the new norm. Although we've been very fortunate, we are at risk of flooding, earthquake, urban interface fires, and another tsunami. For that reason, the Port Alberni Port Authority and the city have partnered to sponsor a 1-day workshop on Thursday, October 11th, in these council chambers to cover business continuity and recovery matters. The workshop is being put on by Canada's most experienced business disaster recovery agency, which is the BC Economic Development Association, who have assisted those impacted by the Burns Lake sawmill explosion, the High River flooding, the Fort Mac fire, the BC interior wildfires, the U.S. Virgin Islands hurricane, and the Grand Forks flooding. The $50 charge covers lunch, coffee, and all materials. Business owners can register by going to the website homepage for Community Futures, Alberni Clayoquot, and by looking on the city's Facebook page. Having spoken with a number of businesses affected by the interior wildfires last year, I can tell you that this October 11th workshop is well worth the money. The second item is the Vancouver Island Foreign Trade Zone Point. This afternoon, the Vancouver Island Economic Alliance announced that Vancouver Island has been designated as a foreign trade zone point by the federal government. This is not a free trade zone such as has been advocated by DBA Silencing or the Colson Group, but it does offer businesses that are exporting products some benefits, including deferred duties and taxes to improve cash flow. The City of Port Alberni and the Alberni Port Authority were the original advocates for this designation, and we're on the VIA committee that worked to achieve it. Thank you.
Oh, great announcement. Thank you very much. Okay. He could see the clock. That's what we need.
And I wish Davina were here to see it. I hope she's watching.
She might not ever believe it. Okay. Council, that brings us then to delegations. We have Owen Jones from R. Anderson and Associates Chartered Accountants in attendance to present the audited financial statements for 2017. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
So just 1 second before you go.
Yes.
Normally we have 10 minutes. Does that give you enough time?
Oh, more than enough time.
All right.
I don't want anybody falling asleep on me, so it's the very nice and boring stuff for here. So I'll try to make it quick and keep you guys awake and motivated. So, as I said before, good evening. I'm Owen Jones from R. Anderson Associates, Chartered Professional Accountants, and we did the audit for the City of Port Alberni. I'm just going to read you here a couple excerpts from our independent auditor's report. I'm not going to go in detail over every single line because, well, as I said, I want to keep you all awake and I want to keep you motivated for the rest of your night. So I'll just go over here. It says our manager's responsibility of the financial statements, and manager is responsible for the preparation and the fair presentation of these consolidated financial statements according to the Canadian Public Sector Accounting Standards. So we're done. Our responsibility is just to express an opinion on these statements. Which says we look for any areas of fraud or misstatement. We work with the your finance department and go over the financial statements. We believe that the audit evidence we've obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our audit opinion. And in our opinion, the consolidated financial statements presented fairly all material respects the financial position of the City of Port Alberni as at December 31st, 2017, and the results of its operations and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with the Canadian Public Sector Accounting Standards. So that means we give a clean opinion for our audit report. So most of the council has gone through the financial statements. I'll just make some quick notes on here on the consolidated statement of the financial position. I'll wait for it to come up there so people can see. Yeah, right there. You've got, the one big thing is you got an increase of cash of over $5 million compared to the prior year, which is always healthy in a situation like this. The more cash in, the better. Also, your debenture debt has gone down by $304,000, which is normal to see in these situations because of the MFA and the normal payments that you're required. On the next page, if you can, thank you. Just the taxes. There's a slight increase in the taxes collected for the city in the current year of $383,000, but you'll notice that there is, for grants, has dropped down over of $1,300,000. So that's just federal grants have decreased for the amount that they're giving you for the current year. But overall, when you look down at your expenses, the expenses have decreased by $1.9 million. So this has actually led to an increase in annual surplus of $1.2 million. So, and like I said, I've already talked about the cash, how it increased, and I think, yeah, everything else you've seen and talked about with your audit meeting. So if there's any questions.
I have one question. I'm sure
Yes.
other councillors have some questions, but I did notice the investment income was down fairly significantly. Was there some obvious reason for that?
Investment income in the revenue section.
I believe so, yeah. I noticed it was down about $125,000.
Okay, I'm trying to see which part you say that you, because the investment income I have looks almost similar to the prior year. So which line are you?
I'm sorry, I neglected to record the line, but I just, it's, in the end, it doesn't impact the final numbers. I just,
Page 33,
it's on page 33? Thank you.
under revenues.
Under revenues.
Okay, under revenues. So you're looking at investment income?
Right.
Okay, because,
Just above grants.
yeah. So I'm just trying to see if I have different statements than what you have. You can just scroll up a little bit more. Investment income.
There,
Yeah.
277.
Okay, investment income is a difference of about.
So I guess the difference was, one was the budgeted amount and the other one was the actual amount.
Yeah.
So we thought it was going to be we were projecting 277 and in fact it was 415.
Yeah, that would have to be, you'd have to ask your director of finance why that has changed, because we looked at it, was very similar to the prior year.
Yeah.
So I would have to, I don't have all the answers for your, what it was included in your budget for figures.
Okay. No, I'm fine. Thank you very much. Council, anything else? Sorry, just some technical difficulties
That's
trying to
okay.
include Councillor McClement. Council, anything else? Councillor Sauvé?
No, I just want to extend my appreciation to Mr. Anderson and Associates for doing this and the time constraints and everything, so appreciate all the work and attention you've done.
Oh, you're welcome. Yes, we came and we worked hard for the time we were up here to get it done quickly for you, so.
Thank you. It was just disconnected, so we're trying to go through that.
Right. Okay. Then, Councillor Sauvé, do you want to move receipt of the report, the auditor's report?
Yes, thank you again to Mr. Anderson and Associates. So I'd like to read the motion that the auditor's report in regards to 2017 audited financial statements be received.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Okay, Council, that brings us to our unfinished business. From the City Clerk, from the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 293, Alberni Valley, the question of a liquor license. A report dated September 18th from the City Clerk in response to Council's request for staff to provide further information on the impacts of the request. There is the August 24th report is attached. Council, questions? I do see Inspector Hunter there and our manager, Mr. Scott. Just a comment from both of you gentlemen in terms of your response to this.
Good
Welcome.
evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Just briefly, as direction, I reached out to municipalities across British Columbia to get some input on their legions and if they've encountered any issues in relation to bylaw concerns based on their liquor license status. So I received a response from 5 municipalities, and the consensus was one of 3 options. Either they're a liquor license primary, and they were licensed, and they've had little to no issues in terms of complaints focusing around, public intoxication or noise complaints in the area. The second was that, they were successful in their liquor license primary with issues and complaints being generated in terms of noise and people within the vicinity smoking and public intoxication. And the third was that municipalities opted to just continue basing it on a case-by-case basis where their license stayed the same, and if they wanted that liquor primary, it would be that special events permit that they could apply for and obtain based on the event that they were having. So I can say that in my experience in Tofino, we did encounter quite a few issues in terms of noise and calls being generated for complaints regarding bylaw issues. But again, you would have to factor in each municipality, the management practices of that location, the proximity to residential zones. Being in Tofino, it was very close to residential housing, as well as the proximity to other bars and the type of, result you get from that. So, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Sauvé?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Have you spoken with the RCMP as in the ongoing issues or not with our local Legion here?
I was going to leave it to Inspector Hunter to comment from an RCMP perspective. I just wanted to offer the bylaw.
Okay. Anything else, Council? Okay, yes, I did check with Tofino to find out what had happened there, and was approved. The similar request in Tofino was approved, and certainly the Legion felt that it was made good business sense to do this, and that's the impetus for the request from our Legion.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Inspector Hunter?
Thank you, Your Worship, Council, for having me here this evening to
Welcome to the
comment
hot
on
seat.
this. We don't have an issue with our Legion here in this community, and I would suspect if the Legion remained the owners and operators of that property, if it was a primary liquor licensed, I don't imagine that would change a lot. It's very tough to compare other communities. If you had a community with, say, 1 or 2 licensed establishment, one of them being a Legion, suddenly it's changed to liquor primary, it's going to get a lot busier. And I don't for a moment believe Port Alberni's in that situation. We have a few places that you can gather in this community and have a beverage and watch the hockey game type of thing. I think it's council's thoughts should go toward something that we have no control over and we don't know, and that's if way down the road the establishment was to be sold. Now you have a liquor primary license, and that's a complete unknown. It's hard to predict what would go in there with the license to sell alcohol. So from my perspective, the Legion as it is not an issue. We all know that the Legion started for veterans, a place to gather and socialize, and then they're in support of our veterans, and I suspect you're right. It's they're trying to change their model to get some more income. Mm-hmm. So can't predict the future of what it would turn into if it was to be sold, but I can speak to what's happening right now. The Legion is certainly not an issue for us.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Sauvé, do you want to move receipt of the report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That the report from the City Clerk dated September 18th firstly be received.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? And Councillor, we're looking for direction on this. Councillor Paulson?
I'd like to make a motion to support the application.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, any comment? Councillor Washington?
So this liquor primary license will stay with the building, so if the Legion decides to, for some unknown reason, disband and somebody else comes in and buys the building, they also get a liquor license?
That's exactly it.
Okay.
Yeah. And remember, once they have their liquor license, then it doesn't have to stay in that exact geographic location. Councillor Minions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just wondering what we can also take the route of providing no comment. And so I'm wondering why, I understand they're not an issue. It's a positive thing right now. Our recommendation from staff, I think in our last report, was to, I'm not sure actually, thinking back, if it was to not provide comment or to decline. I'm somewhat concerned about the option of it possibly selling and having another liquor primary in the area. I think largely from the information they provided to us, it sounds like they want to host events. And so it was discussed last time that they could apply for liquor for special occasion events. And so I'm wondering what our hesitance would be to just providing no comment on this. And it's not really, doesn't seem like it's something we have a strong opinion on one way or another.
Okay. Councillor Alamani?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I along those same lines, it's a shame that there's nobody from the Legion here to bounce this off of a little bit. But I think there's nothing now that would prevent us, I think, from approving it. But you can't predict the future, so I think that's the hardest part. So I don't know that I can support the motion if, like Councillor Minion said, there is the option of doing a no comment. So it's a difficult situation. I would like to support the Legion in their ability to, increase revenue, but it's difficult when we can't predict the future.
Okay, anything else? Councillor Sobe?
Yeah, I just want to speak on a matter as for the Legion. Legions across the country, every little city, especially the rural areas, has been grasping at any economic opportunities that they could have, not only for recruiting for the Legion, but also get into the market of having public events. Now this Legion, I don't see this Legion going anywhere. It has already amalgamated from the second one within the community to one place, and I don't see them going anywhere at all. I feel like we honestly have to give them the tools that they need to be able to get into the market and generate some revenue that they're in desperately need of. So I will be supporting this motion.
Councillor Paulson?
I'm just looking at their letter of intent and the number of events that they would potentially be able to host under the liquor primary license. And I too support the Legion, and I think without the license, we may be in risk of losing them, because I think they have declining revenues as it is, and they're reaching out to try and figure out a way to increase revenues to keep their building and their programs going. And certainly the programs that they contribute to, I think, warrant our support, to be quite frank.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Paulson, I certainly agree with you that I think it's important that we provide whatever support is necessary in order to help the Legion move forward with this request. It's been here since 1926, and it has always been a good partner with the people of the city of first Alberni and then Port Alberni. So I certainly will be supporting the motion. Councillor McClellan, do you have anything to say?
The Legion thing, I would like to support their application, see what happens. They don't stay open anywhere near the length of hours that they're asking for there. And like someone just said, here a long time, give them a chance. There isn't much property there for anyone to do anything, because that parking lot right beside them to the north towards the dike walking is city property. It's not there.
Okay. Thank you. They have the parking lot on the other side then, is that what you're saying?
That's correct. The first one, as you come in from that junction, that's the Legion property. But once you hit the building, beyond the building, it's all city property.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else, Council? Then on the motion, all those in favor? Councillor McClellan? Well,
that's
the-
what's on the table. Sorry,
what's
Jack.
on the table is to provide support.
Oh, is it? I didn't, okay, I just got connected.
Sorry, you were, you,
Said I'm in favor.
okay, thank you. Opposed? The motion's carried. Okay, thank you, Councillor McClellan. Council, that brings us to Economic Development Manager, Facade Improvement Program. We have a report. Mr. Deacon?
3 minutes.
You'll never do it twice.
He might be the only time in his entire life that he's managed that. Anyway, go ahead, Mr. Deacon.
The
We're just having
report is
fun.
in front of you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Oh, come on there, Mr. Deacon. Okay, council, questions on the facade improvement program? All right, so I do actually have a question.
All right.
And that is, do you have any, at this point, do you have any numbers for us in terms of how much money is available for the remainder of 2018?
No, I don't. Community Futures is taking a look at and contacting the projects that haven't started. There's one project that has started and has stalled, and they're contacting those to find out if they are going to move ahead, and if not, then we'll have some numbers.
Okay, thank you, because I know I've been directing a couple of
Yep.
businesses your way. Okay. You don't need a motion on this one because this is
Nope.
just a report. All right, then
Right.
thank you very much, Mr. Deacon.
All right, thank you.
Just a question.
Oh,
What is a deadline for completion? Assessing funding required going forward. What's the deadline? What are we looking at?
So we're going to propose that going forward, if we, assuming that we issue the facade improvement program approvals in the early summer of 1 year, they would need to be completed by the early summer of the following year. And that's to take into account the possibility that the business owners are not able to find contractors to do the work, or we run into rainy weather and winter, and in which case they'd be given until the early summer of the following year.
anything else, Councillor McClellan?
Okay, I guess so. I just see one of them there on Third Avenue. It seems to have somebody working, but they're making more mess than working. So, okay, that's all for now.
If, Mr. Mayor, if I may, this may be a situation where we want to address that matter with another bylaw. We may want to go to the building standards bylaw.
That's fine by me. That's absolutely fine. That's what I tried. I was told no several months ago.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay?
Okay, council, that moves us on then to staff reports. The first one is on accounts. And Councillor Washington, are you able to make that motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the certification of Director of Finance dated September 24, 2018 be received, and checks numbering 142216 to 142330 inclusive, and payments of accounts totaling $909,896.37 be approved.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Carried. And council, from the Director of Finance, a statement of financial information for the year ended December 31st, 2017. We have that report dated September 18th, requesting council's approval for the statement of financial information for the year, that particular year ending at the December 31st. Councillor Sauvé, are you able to make that motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that the report from the Director of Finance dated September 18, 2018 be received, and council for the City of Port Alberni approve the statements and schedules included in the Statement of Financial Information produced under the Financial Information Act for the year of 2017.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Councillor McClellan?
Well, I couldn't hear the motion, the last two motions, but I'm looking over that yellow. I'll some that.
Okay, carried. And council, we have from the Director of Finance awarding a tender 022-18 replacement of 2 pickup trucks. We do have that report recommending council's approval of award of the tender 022-18 to Vancouver Island Ford outside the provisions of the city's purchasing policy. Council request, anybody wish any clarification on this? Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Did we get bids from all the dealers in Port Alberni?
CAO?
Mr. Mayor, the report from Wayne Shovel-David Mechanical Services Superintendent tells us that we received bids from Van Al Ford in Port Alberni, Alberni Chrysler in Port Alberni, and Metro Motors Ford from Port Coquitlam.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McClellan, do you have any questions on this?
I guess I got a problem with Metro Ford in Port Coquitlam.
Okay, what's the problem?
Are they getting one of them, or? No. I just having a bit of trouble reading this. I could not hear what was said.
Okay, go ahead.
3 tenders.
There are 3
Are we awarding them to Port Alberni?
The recommendation is that they be awarded to a Port Alberni business, and that's for council to decide if that's the case to go outside of normal purchasing policy.
Well, we have a purchasing policy of at least $1,000 for local owners.
Right.
I think it should be higher.
And this is, I think, $1,500 difference.
Yeah.
So the recommendation from staff is that we council consider that it go local. Okay, so Councillor.
And each truck is less than $1,000 each.
Okay, so any comment?
Mr. Mayor, the policy is per tender, $1,000. And so both trucks were in one tender. And so the $1,580 difference, it puts it $580 outside of the scope of policy. So if the city's going to grant it in outside of our own purchasing policy, that's the decision council needs to make.
Okay, is there some incredible negative downside if we go outside of our purchasing policy? And what are the long-term implications of that?
I think, Mr. Mayor, there's financial risk. The low bidder could come back at us and say that we didn't follow our own policy. So it's generally not regarded to be good practice. But having said that, staff support that council consider going outside of policy and awarding it locally.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Alaman, are you able to consider making this motion?
Yeah, I'll make that motion. I just wanted to say I was going to ask just to clarify what the city's purchasing policy was, just because that seemed quite up in the air, at least for now. So for the public's ability.
Mr. Mayor, Council, the city has a very extensive purchasing policy, and I will say that it's very effective. We follow it on all of our purchases. And this purchase, had it been within the scope of the policy, the decision would have been made at staff level, which is provided for in the policy. The policy provides, in terms of supporting local vendors, the policy gives a $1,000 preference per tender for local vendors considered to be local. That would be Alberni Valley vendors. In this case, there's a $1,580 difference between the low bidder, who's from Port Coquitlam, and the next lowest bidder, who's from Port Alberni. So I think council is considering a motion to go outside of the city's policy to award that contract locally.
So I think, sorry, Councillor Washington?
Just a question. If we stay local, any warranty work and stuff can be done locally rather than, would the trucks have to go to Port Coquitlam to get warranty work done on them?
As I understand it, no. The warranty work can be done at any dealership. And the non-local bid includes freight on board to Port Alberni, so that's a price delivered to Port Alberni. So we've done everything we can to compare the apples to apples here, and the difference is $1,580.
Councillor Sobe?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, pretty much we're just 500 some dollars over our own policy and all that. And if we're going to send a strong message about shopping locally, I don't want it to be 500 some dollars to be the difference in our decision making. So I fully support this, and hopefully we'll.
Okay. Councillor Minions?
Thank you. I support doing this locally as well. I think we should take the opportunity to review our purchasing policy and add in some areas around social procurement because there are other benefits to shopping locally just beyond supporting jobs. So I think we went to a very interesting session on social procurement at AVICC last year, and there's a group of Vancouver Island communities getting together to do some work around this and how we would add it into purchasing policies. So I think that's something we should be considering in the upcoming year.
Yep, I definitely agree with all the comments. So on the motion, we have a mover.
I haven't actually moved it yet,
Okay.
so I'll move that. That the report from the Director of Finance dated September 18th, 2018 be received, and Council for the City of Port Alberni award tender 02218 to local vendor Van Isle Ford for the purchase of 2 pickup trucks at a cost of $72,630.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor McClellan, did you hear all of that?
No, I didn't, but the motion is as written here to award to Van Isle Ford, and I support that.
Okay, on the motion then, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, from the Director of Engineering and Public Works, the report on the Gertrude Street Bridge over Roger Creek. We have a report dated September 7th from the Director of Engineering in response to Gertrude Street Bridge inspection produced by Councillor McClellan at the September 4th council meeting. Mr. Takama, did you want to go over your report, please?
Put it in English for us laymen.
Yeah, I should have brought a picture, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, there are some pictures in parts of the report. I believe Councillor McClellan's question was around the information supplied in a report from, I think, September of 2009, which I wasn't aware existed, although the same person that penned that report has since done the 2017 report. So I'm confident that, you know, the maintenance that we've done over the years and the inspections that have been done over the years, you know, and visual inspections that I've done on my own self, you know, that the bridge is solid. It does have its issues. It's 60 years old this year. There are some major works that need to be done over the next few years, and that's outlined in Mr. Shepherd's report. We'll be putting forward a report next year, probably in the tune of $200,000 to do deck work on that bridge, which will keep the water from getting down and rotting the piers. And that'll be the first step. Probably in the year or two after that, we'll replace the top beam that's on top of the piles there that you can see, because that's the one that has some rot. But visually, you can't see it. The inspectors have a method of sounding with hammers and things, and again, you know, I'm confident that bridge will be there for some time yet, as long as we put some money into it over the next few years.
Just, I don't know if you can even answer this question, but if we had to replace the bridge, what would it cost? Are we talking millions, or are we talking?
Absolutely, that'll be millions for that bridge.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions, Council? Councillor McClellan, it was your request. Did you have?
I couldn't hear more than a couple of words at the mic there. I guess the question I have is, last time when I was talking about this, the director said that they were thinking about fixing the surfacing and then going underneath the surfacing. Is that still on?
That's correct.
That's correct, yes.
It don't take an engineer to blooming well figure out if you don't do the basement first, the top shouldn't go on. What kind of planning is that? You gotta take the top off to do the bottom.
It's the source of the water that we're trying to get rid of first. So the water's coming through the joint above the pier. And again, the inspector and the engineers will say that. So it is planned that it's not falling down anytime soon, but we do need to replace that joint armor at the pier.
So I guess that's the recommendation of the engineers, so you do the top first. Okay, anything else, Councillor McClellan?
Well, no, I don't agree with it. I don't know what we vote on, just accepting this report.
That's correct.
No, I don't even like it, but I guess he's got to inhale and take it back.
Okay, Councillor Paulson, do you want to move receipt of that, please?
That the report from the Director of Engineering and Public Works report dated September 7th, 2018 be received.
Is
I'll
there
second that.
is there a seconder?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, from the Development Services Technician Council, 4000 Bird Street, the Anderson Hill Development Phase 1. We have a report dated September 17th requesting that Council approve the street name of Parkview Crescent for the Anderson Hill Phase 1 subdivision. Any questions, Council, on the choice of name or how we go about this? Nope. All right, then, Councillor Minions, are you able to make that motion?
That Council for the City of Port Alberni approves the street name of Parkview Crescent for the Anderson Hill Phase 1 subdivision.
Is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor? Carried. And from the Director of Development Services, we have a report dated September 6th requesting consideration of an application for development permit number 18-03 to facilitate the construction of a new mixed-use building at 3033 3rd Avenue. Council, do you need any background on any of this, or do you remember this from last time? Okay.
I remember it was a good deal then, I don't think it's changed.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McClellan. And just to clarify for Council, this request meets all of our requirements as Council in terms of how we respond to development permit requests. So, Councillor Paulson, then. Are you able to move those motions then, please? There are two motions, actually.
That the report dated September 6th, 2018 from the Director of Development Services be received.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor?
Yeah.
Carried.
And that Council for the City of Port Alberni approve development permit number 18-03 and that the City Clerk be authorized to sign the permit, including the following Schedule B development plans. A, drawing number DP-1, site plan. B, drawing number DP-2, elevations front and rear. C, drawing number DP-3, elevations right and left. D, drawing number DP-4, floor plan first and second. E, drawing number DP-5, floor plans third to fifth. F, drawing number DP-6, roof plan. And G, drawing number DP-7, landscape plan.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions, Councillor Alemany?
Not a question so much as a comment, I guess. This came through 2 years ago.
Right.
3
years ago, actually.
3 years
yes.
ago. And nothing was done. And I guess now it's just being resubmitted pretty much exactly the same as it was before. So I'm fairly skeptical about it actually happening. It kind of sounds like it's just being put forward to delay. I don't know. So I won't actually be supporting this.
Okay, and this particular plan comes with a 2-year time frame on it, the same as the last one. Any other comment? Okay. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. And, sorry? Councillor McClellan, you were in favor, am I correct?
Yeah, I couldn't hear the motion or any of the last comments of the last speaker even a little once, but yeah, I'm in favor of that development on Third Avenue.
Okay, thank you. And city clerk, from the city clerk, we have from the Kingsway Hotel, 3203 Kingsway Avenue liquor license application for permanent change. Report from the city clerk dated September 19th regarding a liquor license application to extend their hours of service. Any comment, council? Any requests for information? Councillor Sauvé?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the second request for extended hours, but this is mostly on a permanent basis. I'm just going to repeat what I stated before, and it's unfortunately that the inspector left, but he left very good comments about the ownership and operations of the Kingsway Hotel. So I pretty much support this motion, but I do have concerns that we're not following certain protocol that we did in the past for any type of business owners that wanted to extend hours and so forth, that we actually had a protocol in place, and I don't know if it's written, that we actually check with our first responders to see what their comments were and if they had any concerns. So I just feel that we need to go back to this protocol to make sure we got all the information from every department if they have any concerns. For the reasoning that we're extended by 1 hour for liquor consumption, that is just going to create an avalanche of all the other bars in pubs within a community to do the same thing. So, like I said, I support the Kingsway Hotel, but I just would like to see more of a procedural, as in getting input from our first responders in this.
I think it's actually extended by 2 hours. It's from 10 in the morning until 2 in the morning instead of 10 till midnight. So, I mean, it's just an observation on my part. But remember when I lived in Whitehorse, the bars had 12 hours that they could be open, and it was up to the bars themselves to decide amongst themselves as to which 12 hours they were going to be open. And some were open from noon until midnight, some were open until 3, and just virtually 24 hours a day there was at least one bar open, but they had their 12 hours. They got to choose. Just different response, different way of doing it, so found it interesting. Councillor Minions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering if the CAO could comment on if we have a process on this, because I know with the last application for a different establishment to increase their hours that we declined, there were negative comments attached to that from the RCMP. So I'm wondering if the RCMP if we do formally involve them and they just have not opted to make a negative comment here.
Mr. Mayor, in the city clerk's report near the bottom of the first page, it says RCMP records indicate 6 calls for service directly related to the Kingsway over the past 2 years that were minor in nature. And so, yes, we do follow a procedure that involves taking input from our regulatory branches and our responders, including police, fire, building, and bylaw. Our bylaw services manager is in the room if you'd like to ask him the input that he gave into this process. And if you scroll down further in the report, views of residents, the city puts a notice, publishes a notice, and which we did again in this case, and received no public input. And in a recent application that was denied by council, there was considerable public interest from neighbors. So yes, we do have a process, and it was followed in this case.
And I think it says a lot that the last application was just a few blocks from this one, and we had 20 plus negative letters in the last one and none in this one.
So did we have any, I didn't hear all the questions answered, but did the RCMP make any comment?
Not really. There were some. They made a comment in that there had been some minor concerns, some concerns, but they were very minor.
Yeah, I've been like you, Mr. Mayor. I can remember in the Kingsway you still had an 8.
Yeah.
And people had breakfast there right after graveyard. And used to shut up the lead then around 10 or 11. So now they're open at 10, I guess, till midnight. I'd like to
Yeah, it's a recommendation, and we're not giving approval. That doesn't come from us, but. Councillor Sauvé?
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to make a statement that to the fact that the inspector did somewhat approve the last extension, and he did make a full report that there hasn't been any major events for the Kingsway, and that's why I'm going to support the motion. It's bringing down that I would like to be dealing with this case by case, so proper protocol is followed, and we could, as council, decide case by case. But for this case with the Kingsway, I've only heard positive things, and I'm very encouraged on it. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Washington, comment? Would you like to make the motion then, Councillor Washington?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, that the Council for the City of Port Alberni recommend to the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch that the application from the Kingsway Hotel for a permanent change from their liquor license to extend their hours of liquor sales to 2 a.m. Monday through Sunday be approved.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, all those in favor? Does that include you, Councillor McClellan?
Yeah, okay.
Carried. Well, this technology is a challenge. We're doing very well considering. Council from the Economic Development Manager, Industrial Land Inventory and Action Plan. Council questions for Mr. Deacon. We have his report in front of us. Any questions, Councillor McClellan?
No, I think it's done a fairly decent job.
Okay. Councillor Sauvé?
Just one question I have, and it's been out there in the social media that several, or maybe just one individual, people came down looking for industrial land, and I want to make sure that the public knows that through your branch, we did everything possible to try and locate places for their small industry and so forth. Can you elaborate on that, or? Because I know we're lacking industrial lands. It's simple as that.
We are, and so is the regional district, and that's why we've decided to work together to look at all of the parcels of land that might support either any of medium, light, or heavy industrial activity within the Alberni Valley, and prioritize those that might actually work to accommodate industrial activity. And in fact, the regional district is also willing to take a look at land that they have that's in different designations to see if we can do this, because both municipal agencies have worked to try and accommodate industrial entrepreneurs on a few different occasions and run into challenges. So that's why we're doing this. And I'd like to note that it's an action plan. The intent is to make land available for more development in the valley. And we are also going to take a look at the possibility of an industrial park, and that would be outside of the city's boundaries.
And within my learning throughout this process, it's different types of rezoning as into light, medium, and heavy industrial, and that's where certain challenges are. But if you're approached by certain investors coming in to the valley, not only you promote within the city, but you also promote for the regional district, so we could facilitate anything that will come in our community.
I do. I regularly meet with the regional district director of planning to talk over opportunities that I don't think the city, or I know the city can't accommodate. Okay. And if there's two pieces of land that I think might work for the entrepreneur, and one's in the city and one's in the regional district. I'm happy to present both opportunities to the entrepreneur.
Thank you, Mr. Deacon.
So, Councillor Sobey, do you want to move receipt of the...
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that the report from the Economic Development Manager providing information regarding a industrial land inventory and action plan be received.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Carried. Okay, Council, we have a report request for early budget approval from the Director of Parks, Recreation and Heritage, Multiplex Chiller. Welcome, Director Thorpe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the February 19th regular meeting of Council, staff committed to bringing a new budget figure forward for your consideration, which is in front of you this evening. Technical Safety BC, which is our governing body for the equipment, has validated our operating permit of our current chiller till June of 2019. So that'll carry us through to the end of the current ice season. Even after the Bulldogs go and win the Doyle Cup, ice will not be affected. But Technical Safety BC has, due to the age of the chiller, required us to replace the existing chiller. So in other instances, when we're looking at a newer piece of equipment that's not near its end of life, and also considering things like the Fernie tragedy wouldn't have happened, all those sort of factors, we could look at doing an internal test of that pressure vessel, but all of those considerations, Technical Safety BC is saying that they wouldn't apply. So in this case, in order for proper replacement of the chiller, the benefit is that with actually waiting and looking at the new technology that has arisen, as I've outlined in my report there, significant decrease in the ammonia charge. Also with the atomized system as opposed to liquid system, so far safer. And as it says in my report there, we would actually be considered the safest ice plant on Vancouver Island. So all very good things. So as my recommendation outlines there, I'm requesting early budget approval for the replacement.
Okay, any questions, Council? Councillor Paulson?
This is the same project that we approved, but we decided to delay, right?
It sure is, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So then, Councillor Paulson, do you want to move the motion then, please?
I'd like to move that the report from the Director of Parks, Recreation and Heritage dated September 18, 2018 be received, and Council for the City of Port Alberni approve the request for early budget approval of $330,000 for replacement of the multiplex ice plant chiller. Funding comprised of $125,000 from the Carbon Trust, $50,000 from general revenue, and $155,000 from Community Works gas tax funds.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Just a clarification, CAO, does this mean that this money will be taken off the top of the 2019 budget in that case?
Mr. Mayor, in a sense, yes. So you're predetermining that this will be in the budget. So you're pre-authorizing expenditure. We're not going to wait till May for this.
Perfect. Thank you very much. On the motion, all those in favor then? Carried. City Clerk, BC Transit, General Voting Day. We have a report dated September 19th from the City Clerk requesting approval of free bus transportation on General Voting Day, October 20th. Any discussion? Councillor Sauvé?
I'd just like to understand, is there a cost to the city for this, and what would be that approximate cost?
CAO, do you know the answer to that question about cost for the city?
Mr. Mayor, in the clerk's report, the estimated cost is $300 of foregone revenue.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Minions, are you able to make that motion for us, please?
That the report from the City Clerk dated September 19th, 2018 be received and Council for the City of Port Alberni approve free bus transportation on General Voting Day, October 20th, 2018.
Is there a seconder?
I'll
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions? All those in favor? Carried. And then, Council, we have, we're at the current status report. Other than the progress on the AeroView, the perennial one. CAO, are you able to answer that question? Where are we at with that?
Mr. Mayor, the AeroView is being managed by the manager of bylaw services, and he is luckily in the room to answer that question.
Mr. Scott. You thought we wouldn't notice you back there.
Yeah, that's the hot seat.
Mr. Mayor and Council, with the departure of Scott Smith, this has recently been placed onto my items to do. So we are currently in review for figuring out ways to move forward in terms of the demolition, but I don't have any news for you at this time.
Okay, so just so that you're clear, each one of us is probably asked multiple times a day. So we're taking quite a bit of the load for you. So, but thank you for that report. I was just kidding. Thank you. It's good to know where we're at. Anything else, Council?
What was the report?
What was the report?
No report.
The report was that he's moving ahead slowly, waiting to go through procedures. He's learning his new role.
Next time a catches fire, don't put it out.
Okay. Councillor Alemany, do you want to move receipt of that, please?
That the current status report be received.
Is there a seconder? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, now we're on to, again, manager's monthly reports. We have one, Council. It's from Parks, Recreation, and Heritage. Welcome back, Director Thorpe.
Thank you. So you've got my monthly report there in front of you. Two items that I wanted to bring your attention to. First, on page 116 about Sharp's collection boxes. So as part of my work representing the city as part of the Substance Use Community Action Team, we have installed various interior and exterior Sharp's collection boxes. To give you a bit of a background there, I reached out to Dr. Hasselbeck and confirmed some of our hotspots in community where there's been some response. And our intention is to take a phased approach. So you'll notice that the city is taking a lead on installing Sharp's collection boxes in our own facilities and to the exterior of our own building. And then what our intention is that over the coming few months, sort of monitoring what activity we receive on those bins and then look at potentially expanding and installing further boxes in multiple locations. Staff will be the ones that will monitor each of the bins as well as disposing of the Sharps properly. And just to give you some context on what other communities are doing, so we've reached out to a handful of different communities. And so Parksville, Oceanside, and Campbell River have received disposal boxes and Sharps containers, and they're reviewing that initiative in their communities. In Courtenay, they have received the community boxes, and they're going to be installed soon if they haven't been already. And Duncan and North Cowichan, they have already installed the Sharps collection boxes, and the program's been in operation for the past 18 to 24 months. And then in Nanaimo and Victoria, they actually initiated a program around 10 years ago. And so we're now coming up to the standard that our fellow communities are at. And the second item I wanted to bring your attention to from your UBCM conference, it's not actually part of my report there, but the Community Culture and Recreation Infrastructure Grant. And so this is a fantastic opportunity to explore funding for some major projects like replacement of the Aquatic Center. We have already met at a staff level with ACRD staff, and there doesn't need to be any decisions made this evening about the grant or whether we apply or what that looks like. And at this stage, there's no reason not to stay the course. So as outlined in the ACRD's press release in August, ACRD staff will be preparing a report as part of their orientation for their new board after the election. And we're excited to have the conversation with our new mayor and council as well as with the new ACRD board after the election to discuss fit. So which organization is best suited to apply for the grant, as well as what timelines might look like for application.
So what are the actual timelines on that grant then? How much time do we have in order to work our way through the process? Yeah,
so the first intake, the $134 million that's sort of out in phase one there, application is due January 2019. So there's time for us to work and like I say, stay the course. and follow through our current process that we've outlined. So there's no need to panic at this stage and deviate.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Sauvé?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two questions. I'll ask the first one, if council could be patient with me. The sharp containers, I do have a concern, and I don't know if it was placed by city staff, but I spoke with the maintenance at the Harbor Key, and supposedly there was two of the sharp containers, one in the men's room and one in the woman's room, and they were filled to the tilt. You couldn't add any more needles in it. And my concern is that this is open, unsupervised for the public, and I'm concerned about the kids having access, not knowing what it is, and it's a portable one, so it's easy to carry. Right now, if the city did put them there, I would suggest that they're be replaced, and I have strong concerns that certain activities are happening in that area, so I just wanted to bring that to your attention. My second and most important question is McLean's Mill. This has been out there in the public as into what's been happening lately, and I've been referring all questions to the CAO as per instructions, but there's still many concerns about contaminated lands. I've received reports from the EnviroChem from 1994 identifying certain industrial site at the McLean's Mill land being contaminated, and also I've reviewed a report made in March 2017. It's the most recent report about that. This is somewhat new to me. I understand that McLean's Mill used to be an old industrial land and being used, and just like any other mills, there's certain contaminants they contain. My question is there public safety issues to be concerned? And my other concern is whose idea was to drain the pond into a creek? So, not a specialist on the matter, but I know there's been a lot of concerns in the public, and I think we just need some answers. Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I may respond to the Sharps collection question and then turn over to CAO regarding the mill.
Okay, thank you.
So with the Sharps collection, the current boxes that have recently been installed are quite secure, and so the idea of them being mobile is not the case. What I'm happy to do is have a look and review the key specifically. So the key was not part of the collection bins that were recently installed, but I'd be happy to take a look, because there's the way the current or new design is that, number one, they're not easy to move. They're all locked and secured to the wall
Yeah, I don't think these were city placed there, but someone did place in those locations, and city staff is, at the time that works there, was surprised that they were there. They were brought out by a parent who had concerns, so it's just something worth monitoring. And maybe it'll be a key place, because I could tell you both containers were full to the till. So.
And Mr. Mayor, since we are the landlords of Harbor Key, I think it's important that we follow up on that, and staff will deal with that directly.
Okay, thank you. CAO, did you have a comment on McLean's Mill?
Mr. Mayor, briefly on the concerns around environmental at McLean Mill. Councillor Sauvé is correct. In 1994-95, an outfit called EnviroChem did an extensive environmental assessment of the McLean Mill site. I believe as part of the process to get federal funding from Parks Canada. As you recall, we got several $1 million to upgrade McLean Mill, and it had to pass an environmental review, which the report indicated that all aspects of testing found that there were no elements beyond the standard or the scope of for those elements. There is at least one concerned neighbor who feels that that standard isn't low enough, or allows the contaminants to be higher than they ought to be. In 2017, as a result of concerns from a neighbor, the city retained EnviroChem again to review the literature on that entire environmental assessment. We also interacted with Ministry of Environment, Fisheries and Health on a number of issues on site, and were given no orders. So in essence, all three of those agencies looked at the issue and said that there was no need for the city to take action. That this has come to light again because, as you're aware, last week one of the volunteer groups that leases space for their hatchery on the McLean Mill site undertook a project to do some remediation work on the dam that holds back the log pond. And in preparation for that, they drew down the level of water, and it caused some discoloration of water, and has put us into a situation where we're having to manage through that and testing water, that sort of thing. So it's reinvigorated or reignited that concern about environmental. In response to that issue, effective, I believe it was Friday morning, 8 a.m. Friday morning, the city has taken over that dam remediation project, so it's now a city project. And we're testing water, soil. We've interacted with all the neighbors that we believe may be affected by this or may be drawing water either from Cassuxus Creek or wells nearby. We've met them at their doorways and interacted with them. We're continuing to monitor. We are diverting water away from Cassuxus Creek until we're certain that that water leaving the log pond is not presenting any harm to the environment, fish, or people. There will be a cost for this, and I'm expecting that at our October meeting, we'll be coming to council with a budget estimate for what it'll take to remediate, basically to complete this project and restore the dam to a safe state, and likely be asking council to approve that expenditure.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sobey.
Question I have, would there be, and I understand the city took over and that's very prudent to do that, but can we have an agreement, land being leased or to whoever, is that we have an agreement before they disturb any type of ground, drain any type of pond that may affect our water consumption for those in the area, that the city be notified or we obtain certain permits?
Mr. Mayor, the tenants on our property should not have undertaken this project. I don't believe that the release enables them to undertake capital projects on the historic site. And not only should anybody inform the city, they should get our permission before they do that kind of work. And I think they know that. And they're helping us get out from under this and remediate the issue.
Okay, so just as long as we got something to prevent this ever happening again.
I think, Mr. Mayor and Council, this is an unfortunate consequence of operating a site like McLean Mill at arm's length. We've intentionally put that site in the charge of organizations that are not directly under our control. And as a consequence, things like this seem to be popping up, that we don't have direct control of what goes on in that site. We need to have a much tighter liaison nature and oversight nature on that site, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Council? Councillor Alberni?
Which report are we on, Mr. Mayor?
We're still doing the Parks, Recreation, and Heritage, but there was a question as part of that, even though it wasn't really mentioned in the in the report. Questions came up about McLean's Mill.
The mill pond.
The mill pond. The mill pond. Okay, so I'll go to Councillor Alberni, and then I'll go to you, Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to the CAO for that. I think it's very important that that the city took over that project, you know, it's good to see that we're doing that due diligence with the engineering firm, updating that that assessment, because that's been a concern that I've heard from neighbors there as well. So. You know, as you said, we have to maybe tighten up how our improvements or our assets are maintained out there, even though it's an arm length organization. On the report, I just wanted to thank you, Director, for the Play in PA website. I noticed it last week. I think last week did it go live, or 2 weeks ago? It looks fantastic, and it especially looks fantastic in the most important place, which is on people's phone. So thank you very much. As a webmaster myself, I know that about 70-80% of my traffic now comes from mobile devices. So for us to have a website that is optimized for those devices is excellent. So thank you for that. That's it.
Okay, and Councillor McLean, did you have a question?
Well, I guess on the McLean Mill, and I didn't hear a word that the CAO said and very little that I could gather from reading emails for the past week since I've been here on vacation, and I try not to have them on all day just to figure out what's happening. Look at them with grandchildren and stuff, but it seems to me that we're paying for something we decided to do that, in my opinion, we shouldn't have done about 6 years ago. And I'm going to be studying on it and probably making comments in the next meeting. I definitely am not voting in favor of doing whatever the heck we're doing until I know more about it. I really don't like what happened, and I really think, unless I could be wrong because I'm only reading emails, and I'll have to get back and see, but that's what I think is happening.
Okay, thank you very much. We're at this point we're dealing with the report from the director.
I didn't see that in there, so I was surprised that it was being talked about.
Right. So, Councillor Paulson.
Curveball, yeah. Just an overview or synopsis. You just finished the pool shutdown and yearly maintenance and everything. Some pretty impressive pictures in the report there. It's spooky. Can you reiterate kind of your overall impression of the pool as it sits now? And I mean, over the next few years or a year or two, we're going to be talking about replacing that pool, and kind of, is there more need, or are we still stumbling through? How are we doing?
Mr. Mayor, we're definitely not stumbling. I still hold to what I said the first time I saw our aquatic center, that at 51 years old is still looking far better than pools half its age. We know that aquatic centers aren't built to last 50 years. We know that that's not, as you can tell by the top hole plumbing on the screen there on the left-hand side. It's there's dire straits in some instances, but I still hold fast with my feeling that due to how well staff have maintained that facility since day one is what has kept it going. So at this stage, things are running very smoothly. We opened on time, on budget, so everything's plugging along well. There's, of course, there's lots of unknowns. As infrastructure ages, there's more questions than answers that it seems every year. But that said, it's really hard to say a specific number on it. But at this stage, things are plugging along very, very well. And there's no concerns I have at this stage for its function.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the report, I just want to thank Director Thorpe for coming out this year and attending the Our Town programs and seeing her young people in action. It's quite satisfying to see those kids growing up in front of our eyes. So again, thanks for coming out, and I know I won't miss it next year either.
Okay, Councillor Paulson, do you want to move receipt of that report then, please?
Sure do. That the monthly report from the Director of Parks, Recreation and Heritage, providing information about current departmental operations, be received.
Seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Carried. Okay, Council, thank you, Director Thorpe. Council, that brings us to bylaws. We just had a public hearing, and City Clerk. How did our public hearing go?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so we held a public hearing this evening, 5:45, here in Council Chambers. The applicant was McNeil and Gibsons for 3250 and 3258 3rd Avenue. The applicants are applying to amend the official community bylaw plan and the zoning bylaw to facilitate the redevelopment and or conversion of a former hostel, Fat Salmon's Backpackers Hostel, into a multifamily dwelling building containing 4 dwelling units. The proposed bylaws are official community plan amendment number 26, being 3250 and 3258 3rd Avenue, McNeil and Gibsons, bylaw number 4971. Zoning bylaw map amendment number 29, 3250 and 3258 3rd Avenue, McNeil and Gibsons, bylaw number 4972. Zoning bylaw text amendment number T15, 3250, 3258 3rd Avenue, McNeil and Gibsons, bylaw number 4973. The CAO provided a background from the Director of Development Services. No correspondence were received. No public were in attendance.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Alberni, how's your reading voice?
Good as ever.
All right.
That the verbal report of the public hearing held September 24th, 2018 regarding bylaw numbers 4971, 4972, and 4973 be received.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Carried.
That official community plan amendment number 26, 3250, and 3258 3rd Avenue, McNeil and Gibbons, bylaw number 4971 be read a third time.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Carried.
That zoning bylaw map amendment number 29, 3250, and 3258 3rd Avenue, McNeil and Gibbons, bylaw number 4972 be read a third time.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Carried.
That zoning bylaw text amendment number T15, 3250, and 3258 3rd Avenue, McNeil and Gibbons, bylaw number 4973 be read a third time.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? Carried. Okay, Council, that brings us then to Chief Administrative Officer compensation for emergency response outside of regular hours policy for exempt employees. We have his report dated September 14th concerning compensation for exempt staff and members of council during emergencies. Council wish any clarification on any of this? Then, Councillor Minions, would you make those motions, please?
That the report from the CAO dated September 14th, 2018 be received.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Carried.
That Council for the City of Port Alberni endorse the compensation for emergency response outside of regular hours policy exempt employees as presented.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor,
CAO?
could I jump in? It would help, Mr. Mayor, if we took the vote of Councillor McClellan as well.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor McClellan, we're now just going on to the endorse the compensation exempt employees.
Yeah, I support that.
Okay.
I had him muted.
Okay. Did you want to finish reading?
That council remuneration and expense bylaw 2018 amendment number 3 bylaw number 4835-3 be introduced and read a first time.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That council remuneration and expense bylaw 2018 amendment number 3 bylaw number 4835-3 be introduced and read a second time.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor?
Yeah.
Carried.
That council remuneration and expenses bylaw 2018 amendment number 3 bylaw number 4835-3 be introduced and read a third time.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, Council, that brings us to correspondence for action. And I don't believe, yes, we don't have any, but we do have proclamations. First one is from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. We have an email dated August 31st from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business requesting that Council proclaim January 21st through January 25th as Red Tape Awareness Week. That's in 2019. Councillor Paulson.
I'd like to move that the email dated August 31st, 2018 from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business requesting that Council proclaim January 21st, 2019 through January 25th, 2019 as Red Tape Awareness Week in Port Alberni and be received and the week proclaimed as requested.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Any discussion? All those in, sorry.
Did you make comment there's no red tape in Port Alberni?
No, that's right. Yeah. You should have seen how fast our public meeting went today.
Okay, yes, we set a new record there for Councillor McClellan. You should know, it took us 6 minutes. All those in favor? Carried. And from
Mayor.
the Port Alberni
Mr.
Association for Community Living?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Deacon would like to speak about the red tape item, just to broaden out the
Okay.
intent of it.
Mr. Deacon?
Sorry for the interruption.
Mr. Mayor, councillors, the Canadian Federation of Independent Business is asking communities to adopt a red tape reduction charter. They're actually challenging municipalities across the country to do that. And what they're looking for inside that charter is that municipalities would adopt a process whereby if a regulation affecting small business was being introduced, that there would be ways of reviewing it, challenging it, to make sure that it was necessary. And they're also asking for a one in, one out policy, so that if a new regulation was adopted affecting small business, that one on the books would be taken out. And they're indicating that if council is willing to adopt this challenge in writing by December 14th, they will highlight our leadership in this area. Now, what it means is that come the Red Tape Reduction Awareness Week that you've just proclaimed, that on one of those days, Port Alberni will get recognized along with other municipalities that are adopting this. So I wanted to make sure that council understood that. There is enough time for me to bring our report forward to the October 4th or 9th meeting.
Okay, I was going to
about
suggest you do that. from
Okay.
CFIB. Thank you, Mr. Deacon. Okay, council then from the Port Alberni Association for Community Living, also known as PACL. We have a letter dated August 31st requesting council proclaim the month of October as Community Inclusion Month. And Councillor Minions, are you able to make that motion for us, please?
That the letter dated August 31st, 2018 from the Port Alberni Association for Community Living requesting that council proclaim the month of October 2018 as Community Inclusion Month in Port Alberni be received and the month be proclaimed as requested.
Is there a seconder? Okay, all those in favor? Carried. And informational correspondence, City Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 1J, Promo Science Expedition, Royal Roads University, email dated September 6, 2018, advising the CCGS Vector Marine Research Ship will be docked at the Maritime Museum on October 18th and will be open for public tours in the afternoon. J2, Tarbining Guru Nanak Sikh Society, letter dated September 10th, 2018, from the Sikh Society announcing the Punjabi cultural event taking place September 29th, 2018, celebrating Punjabi culture in the Alberni Valley. Island Health, a public approach to non-medical cannabis, letter dated September 10th, 2018, from medical health officers of Island Health concerning a public health approach to non-medical cannabis. Number 4, Island Health Communications, safe needle disposal, email dated September 17th, 2018, from Island Health Communications, providing information and resources for safe needle disposal within our community. Number 5, Councillor Paulson, summary report from the Union of British Columbia Municipalities Annual Conference and Trade Show. And number 6, Technical Safety BC Railway Audit and Notice and Order. Notice and Order dated September 18th, 2018, and audit dated September 4th, 2018, from Technical Safety BC regarding threats to railway safety at Alberni Pacific Railway. Number 7, Union of British Columbia Municipalities Convention, Councillor Alamani's report regarding attendance at the UBCM convention. And finally, number 8, Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce, AV Chamber of Commerce, letter dated August 30th, 2018, advising that they are working on significant improvements to the Alberni Valley Visitors Guide next edition.
Okay, thank you very much. Any councillors wish to pull anything out of any of these? Okay, then thank you very, oh, sorry.
I'd like to take number 5.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor McClement.
I'd like to thank Councillor Colson for writing this all out and doing that for accompanying us at these minister meetings. Just one comment I'd like to make on top of what Ron put down there was the number 2 under ministers meeting, public safety and solicitor general, Mike Farnworth, talking about whether or not we have to put pot in it, and I think it's very good to note that council has a say whether any pot places go in. I know I'm supposed to say cannabis, that's another word. And we can also say whether they're public, private, and where they go. So they have given us some control, so let's use that.
The other thing we can also do is consideration in terms of the cost of their license, business license.
Well, that shouldn't even be extra. We should be doing that today.
Okay, Councillor Minions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering first if maybe the CAO could comment on number 6, the technical safety railway audit, and what the next steps are on this.
Sure. Mr. Mayor, Technical Safety BC is the regulatory body that oversees, in this case, rail operations. And it's my understanding that on August 31st, 2018, Technical Safety BC did a scheduled inspection of Alberni Pacific Railway. They found them to be deficient in 2 regards and assessed an order that APR is not allowed to move any trains until those issues are addressed. There's been one of those items. Number 2 was that a third-party qualified inspector inspect the locomotive or locomotives, and that work has happened. And as I understand, several items have been identified that need to be rectified before those trains are allowed to operate. So as it stands now, Alberni Pacific Railway is not operating, and Industrial Heritage Society and McLean Mill Society are working on solutions and sourcing out costs and that sort of thing. And it likely McLean Mill Society will be here at the next meeting of council to update you. They would be here tonight, but they had another meeting.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Council? All right, Councillor Minions? Oh.
Thank you. The other one I wanted to pull out was number 8, Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce. I think from reading through the letter, I was somewhat confused. I think that they, the Chamber of Commerce is wanting us to endorse them as the official providers of the Alberni Valley Visitors Guide. I'm wondering if the CAO could provide clarification on if that's something we've done before. I certainly would support them taking it on, especially in conjunction working with the Alberni Valley News. But I'm wondering if is that our right to designate, and have we done that in practice before?
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if we've done this in practice before. The city could designate an official, this is the official visitor's guide of the city of Port Alberni. I don't think it would stop AV News from publishing a visitor's guide. So the contract the city has, the agreement the city has with the Chamber of Commerce to operate the Tourist Bureau includes that they will publish a tourist guide. There's already, as you've seen, a tourist guide published by the Alberni Valley News. And I would suggest that council not consider endorsing one or the other without interacting with both. And perhaps the next best step would be that Mr. Deacon and I meet with both the Chamber and AV News to see if we can help them come to one visitor guide that is better than both have been. And there have been some challenges with the visitor guides not being accurate and current. And I think that if we, Mr. Deacon and I were to meet with the parties, we might be able to come back to council and make a recommendation. I don't know that you should be making, granting official status to anybody without hearing from both.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Alamany?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On number 3, the non-medical cannabis letter from Island Health, I just wanted to point it out that it, if the public goes through it, it's a very comprehensive list of actions that the city could take as far as updating our bylaws. So I just wanted to point it out as maybe something that when we do go through the bylaw process, updating our own bylaws, I think we should actually have this letter on hand to consult because it it has all sorts of really good suggestions in there that we should consider. So just a note on that.
Okay, thank you very much. Then, Councillor Sauvé, do you want to move?
Thank you. I move that all the informational correspondence item number 1 through 6 be received and filed.
1 through 8.
Sorry,
Thank you.
somebody did a typo.
Okay. On the motion, all those in favor?
Yeah.
Carried. Okay, there is no report from in camera, so that brings us to council reports. The first one is mine. September the 10th, Council, I attended the Suicide Awareness Walk at Bob Daly Stadium, which was sponsored by Coors Crisis Line. And there was a class from the secondary school that was there to participate in this as well. September the 11th, we had the groundbreaking of the Anderson Hill project, both multi housing and single-family housing be started on now. It was great to be part of that. As well, later that day I participated in the early childhood education panel at UBCM to discuss the partnership that City of Port Alberni had with the Friendship Center to allow them some land that we granted them so that they could build their early childhood center. It's quite the provincial center. And September 13th, I attended the UPNIT Power board meeting and then as well accompanied the Hupetcha Sept for a meeting with the School District 70 senior staff later on that day. September 14th, we had the Sea Cadet flag raising, recognize 75 years of Sea Cadets in the Alberni Valley. September 17th, we had a special meeting of council, but it was for the ACRD, sorry, it was a special meeting of the ACRD to look at their cannabis regulations and elicit public responses to how the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District is handling cannabis and any concerns around cannabis, particularly cultivation. September 18th, we had the McLean's Mill public input session, which was well attended and was a well set out process. September 21st, Council, I attended the retirement for Jamie Morton and the manager at our museum. And on September 22nd, I attended the grand opening of the Attic, which is in a new, larger store in the Adelaide Shopping Center. And just as a point of interest, their previous store, which was much smaller, much more compact, much more crowded, a good day for them would have been $50 in sales. The new store, in the first 3 days, they had sales of $1,500 to $1,800, and in the first 3 days paid for the entire month's rent. So they're feeling very positive about this move, and it's certainly much easier to get around and much easier to see what they have. So, and Council, that's my report. I move acceptance of my report.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Carried. And Council, from the regional district, Councillor McClement, I don't believe we had any real regional district meeting, did we?
We just had a Alberni Valley one on Thursday, which I was here for, so I wasn't there. If you got there, you could maybe give a quick report, but it's no voting until this coming Wednesday, and I plan to be there for that.
Yes, so there will be a report brought to next week coming out of that. One of them looking at the terms of reference for the Alberni Valley Airport, an advisory committee, and what that will look like. So that's sort of the major piece that's coming forward. Okay, but I won't make that as a formal regional district report because that's pretty off the cuff. Okay, Councillors, let's take into councillors' reports, and we'll start with Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like most, I attended the UBCM, took part in as many workshops and minister meetings that I could. I'd like to thank Councillor McClellan and Councillor Minions for taking the lead in the minister discussions. Jack has his way of speaking that helps us along in those meetings, so thanks, Jack, and thanks, Shari. I think the workshop that had the biggest impact on me was the Indigenous relations and how not to tick the box. It had two chiefs, one from Beecher Bay and the other Chief Ron Sam from the Songhe. They're both on the panel along with other local leaders. Great proven ideas, how to first create a friendship before going to all those stuffy meetings. I must admit, I spent some really good time with my fellow councillors too, something that we don't do often enough. It was very enjoyable. And just quickly on our Salmon Festival this year, we sold 1,813 tickets. Survey shows that people as far away as Nova Scotia and the U.S. were there, and 71 people from Alberta. So with over so that leaves us about $18,000 earmarked for salmon enhancement for 2019, and I'd like to thank all the volunteers that made Salmon Festival 47 a reality, and thanks for all your hard work, and hope to see you next year. That's my report.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Alamani?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like Councillor Washington said, we were off at UBCM, so there were many great workshops and resolutions and meetings with ministers. I won't belabor them too much. You can see the report that I have on my website there for lots of detail, but I did want to mention two of the big ministry ones that made an impact on me. The first one was the meeting with Minister Darcy of mental health addiction and mental health and addictions, and she was talking about the overdose prevention site and consultations around that. So it was good to get her update as far as where that overdose prevention site is in terms of what kind of contract are we looking at going forward. They're bringing forward a slightly more permanent arrangement. We'll see what that looks like in the upcoming months, but hopefully it has a lot more consultation and public consultation, and she indicated that's the case, so will be good to see that. The other one for me was the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment for an update with open burning smoke control regulation. I'll be bringing that to the Air Quality Council, but the minister basically said that they're bringing forward more information for community air sheds before they implement the regulations, but those regulations should be coming forward soon. And we talked a lot about the opportunities that there are moving away from slash burning near our communities and towards something that might create more jobs in the forestry sector. So that was good. And then the rest, like you can see on my website. So I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Minions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended UBCM as well, and I do have a report as well that will be on our next agenda. A couple things to highlight from UBCM. I attended a really good session on housing and different ways to encourage secondary suites to be created and carriage homes to be created. I know we've been waiting on a report to just start to relax our bylaws for secondary suites, but I think that we need to do a lot more than that at this point, given where the housing crisis has gotten to over the last couple of years. So City of Victoria and City of Nelson have some really great initiatives on how they're encouraging people to create suites. We are lucky in this community to have a lot of larger homes just because of the style of house when our development really boomed here. So I think we have some opportunities that I'd like to see us bring forward. And then the only other meeting that I'll highlight, not from UBCM, but last weekend I attended our Vancouver Island Regional Library Board meeting where I'm a trustee. And we passed our budget. The overall budget saw an increase of just under 5%, which is kind of on par with the increases we've been seeing for regional library over the last few years. But our actual portion of that, our specific member levy, is actually decreasing by $24,000 this year. And the reason for that is the way that the library is funded. It's 50% based on your population and 50% based on your overall property values in the community. And our property values went up, but our population, they actually note as going down 1,900 people, down to about 15,700. So their stats come from BC Stats. So I was really alarmed by that. So I started to look at the data, and I don't see anywhere in BC Stats that our population went down by 1,900 people. We will take the price reduction with our library, though. But it does note in BC Statistics for the end of 2017, our population being at 15,700 people, which is quite shocking to me. If we are down that low. So I know we all feel a sense of growth, but I was quite surprised to see that. Anyways, it's good news that our library is going down a little bit. That will help in our budget for the upcoming year. And then the other thing of note there is that we are expecting a substantial renovation to our library in 2019. That will be funded by Vancouver Island Regional Library rather than by the City of Port Alberni. And for the first time, they're actually bringing in a spatial architect to design it. So it sounds like it's going to be quite a good improvement to our library. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Paulson.
Once again, UBCM and Councillor Alberni's and my reports are in tonight's minutes. Just a couple things. I had the opportunity to stand up in an open forum, and there are several ministers there, and I actually addressed the Minister Trevena, who is the Minister of Highways and Transportation, and just talked about safety improvements to Highway 4 and also Cathedral Grove. And I asked her pointedly to make sure that she keeps open discussions with regards to Cathedral Grove so we can at some time in the future come up with a solution. And I know we've talked about Cathedral Grove, and various things have been brought up, but nothing has ever really stuck with the Ministry of Transport or Highways. So she kind of nodded her head and said, yep, I'll continue those discussions. So we need to hold her to the fire for that. The other one that I went to was a session on communicating with millennials. And out of that session, millennials are now the dominant population in Canada. They outnumber the baby boomers by one. Shari?
We do.
Well, yeah. And anybody who wants to know the definition of a millennial, they are the ones that were born between 1997 and 2004. That panel was constituted of the youth committee from...
That's not right.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
1997
to 2004.
1987.
Yeah.
I think. 87, I think.
Yeah.
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 I'm still a millennial.
It's in my note. It's in my notes.
Okay,
Anyway, they are the dominant population, and that group, the panel was made up of the youth council from the NIMO, and they're quite an ambitious group down there. So that was good to see. And also, the last weekend, I was away for 4 days at the British Columbia Hockey League showcase tournament that brings all 17 teams together under one roof to play 2 games. And there was over 100 NHL scouts, NCAA scouts, and Canadian University scouts at that event. And it's the first one I've been to, and it was impressive to meet some of these people from the military universities in the States and stuff. So, yeah, that's my report, and I'll pass it on to
Councillor Sauvé.
1982.
1982.
Did I say 97?
You said 97, but you were only off by 15 years, so it's okay. So, but since we know you're a baby boomer, it's okay.
I'm trying to prop myself up here.
Okay. Councillor Sauvé.
Thank you, Councillor. Pretty much on the 8th of October during Fall Fair, which was a great event. I'd took some time to be in the emergency preparedness booth at the request of Regional District. Very interesting. And every year I get to learn something, so it was well informative and well attended. Also, as the mayor stated, the 10th is Suicide Awareness Walk at Bob Daly Stadium, sponsored by the Coast Crisis Line. Very well attended, especially with the youth, and it really showcased how much work the Coast Crisis Line does in our community and how important it is to support that. Special meeting at City Hall with the Alberni Valley Senior Citizens Society on the 17th. On the 22nd, this past weekend, I spent with the community policing. I attended the Aussie Cycle Shop, our very own cycle shop in town on 10th and Roger. It's a very interesting program. It's actually online program that you could set up and register your bike. And we're having a lot of major issues in our community with property crimes, and bicycle being one of those that we're having. So it's an online process. It's through the RCMP and another company. So it was great for them to be doing that, and all the volunteers were out there, so I thank them to be out there. And just one big announcement, Cops for Cancer, Friday the 28th at the Athletic Hall. If you haven't got your tickets, get your tickets and support your local Cops for Cancer volunteers. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor McClellan, did you have a report?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, sent some stuff around on email and that. About the UBCM, I'd just like to comment on the preparedness of the ministers that we went to see. I've never seen that before. I've been to a lot of UBCMs, a lot of ABICCs, and talked to a lot of ministers. But this time when we got there, even though we didn't send them a great big dossier of what we were doing, just the questions, they had, if not everything we wanted to hear, the answer we wanted, they definitely displayed the fact that they had studied it and were ready with answers, particularly Judy Darcy, with the problems we're having with the place where people are allowed to take drugs and so on down there on 3rd Avenue, the trouble that businesses are having. So said we may be having some more consultation, so I think we should just follow up on that one too. So it was a good time, and the other thing that I've attended several things since then, the McLean Mill information session, and then right after that, I think things went a wee bit south. So when I get home, I'll see what's what. So on that note, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move acceptance of all these wonderful reports from everybody, even though I didn't hear them all.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, all in favor? Carried, thank you very much. Council, that brings us to new business, and we have UBCM presentation on bylaw powers. Councillor McClellan, I believe this is from you.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I did request it. It's a good motion. The only thing that, just so long as Flynn Scott or Scott Flynn, I never know which is his first and last name, that guy, but that he's involved in this and does the main writing. He seems to be very skilled and well background in the subject. So I'll move that the Council of the City of Port Alberni direct staff to prepare a report regarding bylaw powers and enforcement following the presentation of the recent UBCM conference entitled Better Bang for the Buck with Bylaw.
There's a seconder?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Councillor McClellan. That brings us then to question period. It's an opportunity for public and press to ask questions of the mayor and council. Anybody wish to do that? Seeing none, then motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Councillor McClellan. Did you already turn him off?
I still thought it was 1997.
I think we just heard.